race too. I think I've been very impressed with Dave Reed.
Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we have two of the state's leading reporters. We're going to get into all things state capitol. Can we talk about liquor privatization? Can we get into the budget? Can we talk about something called the stripper bill? You won't believe that. And then we're going to have Senator Lloyd Smucker. He chairs the Senate Education Committee, and Patti. Fair funding for the schools. Is that a possibility? All of that and more follows these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, these are big weeks in the state capitol in Harrisburg, and as our regular viewers know, we get into the details of it. Most of our viewers are interested in these subjects. Joining me, as often is the case, is Steve Esack with the Allentown Morning Call, and Mary Wilson. She's the Pennsylvania Public Radio reporter, covers all things dealing with the Capitol, as does Steve. All right, look, folks, I mean, every minute there seems to be something new going on in Harrisburg. Let me start with you, Mary. Now we learn that, well, are we going to have something with liquor privatization? Maybe it's a little different form. Will it hold up the budget or not? Most of us thought that in order to get the budget done, the Senate and the House, particularly the Republicans, will get together and do a liquor bill. Now, we're not quite sure if they do. It may be a different, it's complicated, right?
It's a little bit complicated, and it's, like you say, the ground is kind of moving underneath our feet. So one day leaders say, Republican leaders from the House and the Senate say, we absolutely need a pension bill and we absolutely need a liquor bill. But we feel that the pension bill is more the roadblock to an agreement with the governor's office, the Democratic governor. And then the next day we hear that from the governor's office that liquor is the roadblock, efforts to privatize liquor, particularly from the House GOP. And then we hear again from a different Republican leader in the House that no, liquor is not the roadblock, and that, liquor could provide, our massage plan to sell off the stores could fund some education increases that the governor likes. And if he doesn't want those funding increases, maybe we'll take that away. So what is clear is that they're still maneuvering each other. They're still massaging their...
It's fluid?
Yeah.
Well, just so we're all on the same page here, a number of Senate Republicans in particular, and House Republicans more so than Senate Republicans, want to privatize the state liquor stores. That means the wholesale and retail operations would be completely privatized. Only two states, Pennsylvania and Utah, currently do that. Some states have the wholesale operation, like Virginia, in control of the state, but the retail is privatized. Steve, you've been covering this like Mary for a long time. I'm thoroughly confused about what's likely to happen with liquor. It looks now like they might be moving towards something called modernizing, meaning you keep the liquor store operation and maybe the wholesale, but then the retail is...
Well, I just think that, as Mary was alluding to, all the confusion out there, all the shifting opinions, public statements, that kind of thing, I think it's clear the House bill that passed several months ago is completely dead. That was alleged to have raised $1.2 billion in 1 year by selling everything off, the wholesale aspect as well as the state stores. The current bill, or what the idea that everyone is, that Majority Leader Dave Reed was floating yesterday it would raise $200 million by leasing the wholesale. What that really means, I have no idea. Leasing the wholesale and then phasing out the liquor stores so everyone could buy.
So it would be then a transition from the privatizing, from the operation now, wholesale and retail in the state control, to a phase out, for the state's control.
Exactly.
Is that your understanding?
Yeah, and so everyone could go into one store and buy, beer, wine, alcohol, that kind of thing, and mix it all together.
Mary, when it's all said and done, this isn't likely to hold. The budget has its own problems, which I can talk to Senator Smucker and Patti about. This isn't likely to hold up the whole budget, is it? Liquor privatization. Pensions, maybe. Pension reform.
Well, it's hard to know. It's hard to know, right? Because all the different sides are saying, well, it's not my priority that's holding things up. It's the other person's priority. And that's happening within the among the Republican leaders themselves, where they're saying, well, they're saying liquor's holding it up, but it's actually pension. I mean, it is
so
just not clear. These are closed-door negotiations.
We got to run to a break quickly.
Well, I was just going to say, look, the House passed the liquor bill months ago. The Senate, the Senate did their pension bill, and so in the last couple days before the so-called deadline for June 30th on the budget, everyone is now blaming everybody else. Well, you know what? You people are full-time.
They're doing this with each other.
Everybody on paper is a full-time lawmaker. Everyone, the governor's a full-time governor. So why not just why the end rush to make the drama?
Because that's the way the legislature has functioned historically. All right, when we come back, I want to talk about a vote that took place that unions are not happy with, and then something called the stripper bill. You won't believe this one. I'll be back. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business.
I don't know. Yeah, human trafficking. It came out at.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back with Steve Esack and Mary Wilson, two of the state's leading reporters. They cover Harrisburg. I'll tell you, Steve, when I first read about this bill, the stripper bill, I said, whoa, what? You have to explain this. What was? I guess it's been pulled, but you can't rule out it coming back. What's the stripper bill?
Yeah, the stripper bill was pulled from committee yesterday in the House, and basically the genesis is Representative Matt Baker says it's his attempt to stop human trafficking. He alleges in the bill that many people who work in a strip joint are forced labor, basically, and he wants everyone who takes their clothes off to register, to give their name, rank, serial number, their stage name to the Pennsylvania Department of State. He also, part of the bill too, would put a physical barrier between the dancer and the patron, so there would be no more
Now hold
lap
on
dance.
a minute. What is the rationale? Why is this being proposed in the first place?
I have no idea.
Is it human trafficking?
It is human trafficking. That's the language in there. It came out of nowhere last week that this bill was coming up for a vote. Right?
Hold on. It might not have come out of nowhere. It's true that human trafficking over the past couple of years has been kind of a hot legislative issue. Right. Advocates for a safe harbor provision in state law for victims of human trafficking are starting their push for that legislation. It comes a year after lawmakers passed a crackdown on human trafficking. So the aegis of this, it doesn't ring hollow. It doesn't ring false.
Yeah. But to link all that in that debate you just mentioned, I didn't hear anything that said there's anything going on in a strip joint that people are there held in slave labor.
Now, obviously, human trafficking is horrible, and everything should be done to eliminate it. Is your point that there's no evidence that there's human trafficking in this strip operation?
I'm not a cop. I'm not a cop. I never studied that. I have no idea. But that the bill goes beyond that. It takes away the right to a adult entertainment club to sell alcohol. It takes away some other aspects that go on there. So if it is all about human trafficking, what's the point of taking away someone's alcohol? The language in there also talks about.
So your point is, you think it may go too far?
Yeah, I think it goes too far. I think there's First Amendment right issues.
Well, and the sponsor of the bill basically made that point for Steve when he pulled it from a committee calendar and said that there are concerns about this bill. We've got to take another look at it before we bring it up for a panel's consideration. So, I mean, that's not not Esack making that point. That's the sponsor of the bill himself.
No, I get it. I get it. All right, Mary, look, there was we're talking about a bill that passed the House that has to do with what happens before union contracts are voted on. It has to do with the cost. Unions obviously very upset about that. What's the specifics of that?
Okay, so the specifics.
Public unions we're talking about, right? The public unions. Go ahead.
Right. The specifics of these two measures passed in the Senate on a I believe straight party line vote, passed in a House committee. Very contentious. The Independent Fiscal Office would have to draw up a cost analysis of any pending deal with public sector unions and the governor's administration.
Except law enforcement.
So they're exempt from.
They're exempt. All
so
nearly 20,000 employees, nearly 20% of the state workforce would not have anything to do with their union contracts.
Okay, Finney, go ahead. So we have two things that
and so that's the first thing, and the second thing would be that the details of the deal have to be publicized, like on a website. So
a union, let's say a union, let's be specific. Let's say AFSCME negotiates its contract with the state. They represent the largest pool of state workers. AFSCME union would negotiate a contract. Before that contract is voted to finalize, union members and the state agree to it. Two things have to happen. One, the public has to be made aware of the terms, and number two, there has to be what's it going to cost? Do I got that right?
Right, I believe so, and it's very hard to see this getting approved by the governor.
The governor puts a veto pen.
Right.
To it, right?
But beyond the governor vetoing this, it has to be pointed out, and it's my fault because I haven't pointed it out, is this is nothing, it's smoke and mirrors. The Pennsylvania's right to know law precludes contracts, non-ratified contracts from being publicized. So if you have one law that says...
So they'd have to deal with the conflicts between the two laws, is that right?
Yeah, because they're still not publicized under a different law.
And the governor's administration would say here that the legislature exempts themselves from large swaths of the right to know law. Pre-decisional documents are often not allowed to be made public under the right to know law.
Great update, All right, a rare moment of bipartisanship broke out in the Pennsylvania legislature last week. We're going to have Senator Lloyd Smucker and Dave Patti. They're going to come on and tell us about this bipartisanship. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Welcome back to the program. Well, as I promoted, a rare moment of bipartisanship broke out last week in the Pennsylvania legislature. Talking to me about that and a couple of other subjects, Senator Lloyd Smucker. He chairs the Senate Education Committee. He represents a district in Lancaster County. And Dave Patti. Dave's a frequent guest. He heads the Pennsylvania Business Council. All right, I'm going to ask you both a question to start. We'll get to the rare moment of bipartisanship that broke out and patting on the back and all kinds of, good camaraderie. All right, Senator, here we go. As we tape this, there's lawmakers and the governor are still meeting. It's going to go on through probably the next, 8-9 days anyway. It may go on a lot longer than that. Republicans just going to pass their own budget if you all can't agree with the governor?
I think so. I think there will be a budget on the governor's desk by June 30th or close to that date. And I think there are two potential paths going forward. One is the Republicans in the Senate and the House are working together to draft a budget that we would support and that include our priorities, but there are also ongoing conversations, daily conversations with our leadership and with the governor's team and at staff level as well, working on various components of the budget. But the hope is that by June 30th we can have an agreed upon product. But either way, I think there'll be a budget on the governor's desk.
Yeah, I mean, all right, Dave, you've been through a lot of these, so let's go to this. I mean, the prospects of getting the governor and the Republican-controlled legislature together, not very great. So we could have stopgap funding, which everybody hates, but often...
Well, we don't do stopgap the way Washington does stopgap, though.
That's
I mean, the way we would do it, and so I wouldn't characterize it as stopgap. I would suspect it wouldn't be surprising. It's been done many, many times in the 30 years I've been here, to send the governor a budget. We have the line item veto in Pennsylvania.
I understand.
So the governor can take out a few things that are big and important and really have to be
alone.
But they leave the rest alone. And what's great about that is 80 or 90% probably everybody agrees to. It's incremental plus inflation.
Yeah.
And that allows those important human services and education programs and economic development and other functions of government to continue, everyone to get paid. So none of the drama that Washington has.
You don't have debate over who the essential employees are.
Right. I think it's actually a very adult way to handle it.
Yeah,
and now let's come back and talk about the big things.
Yeah. And so would you agree with that? Is that one of the paths forward, right?
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, I think there will be a budget on the governor's desk, and then he would have to choose what he does with that if it's not an agreed upon product at that particular point. But we do have line item veto, as David said, so that would be one of the possibilities.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's turn to the big topic of the moment, and that is there was a commission established, a bipartisan commission, 15 members. Mostly made up of lawmakers, both parties. You all agreed that the way in which we fund the schools, not talking about the total dollars, but which school district gets how much and all of that has been not very wise over the course of years. And you all came up with a new recommendation. Well, first of all, tell us what we need to know in background.
Sure.
Moving forward.
Yeah, well, in terms of why this was put together, I think, and the fact that there was unanimous support on a new approach going forward is an indicator of the priority of education for everyone, from the governor to every member of the legislature. The dollars we spend on education on our 500 school districts in the Commonwealth from the state budget.
$5 billion? Is it $5 billion?
Yeah, $5.6 billion was this year. And that's distributed to 500 school districts through our basic education funding line item. There are additional line items as well, special education, money, pension, reimbursement. All told, it's over 40% of our total state general fund budget. So it's a high priority. And the reason for the commission in the first place is because we want every child in Pennsylvania to have the opportunity for a world-class education. And we know there are funding inequities. There's a funding gap within our system. Some districts spend as low as about $10,000 per student. Others spend up to $28,000 per student. And so and that has developed over a long period of time. So the idea behind this commission was to put together a recommendation for the General Assembly for a new formula.
Okay, let's stop here. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, I want to pursue some of this. What's in it? What are the pros and the cons of it? What's likely to happen with it moving forward? All right, this is an important topic. This is the way we fund 500 school districts. Property taxes, layoffs, teacher layoffs, staff layoffs, program curtailments that you've been reading about over the years are all involved in this as well. We'll be back with more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Welcome back. Well, we're talking about one of the most important subjects before the state legislature. It's called education funding. All right, Dave, Patti, there's a recommendation for a new formula. As the senator points out, it tries to equalize the inequities in school funding over the last years. What's going to happen to it?
I think it's been widely applauded. Business community, labor community.
I know, everybody.
Democrats. And I think that's because they took a lot of testimony. I mean, over 100 people testified over a full year.
Right.
So you really had a chance to both listen and think about what you were hearing as lawmakers. And it percolated out slowly. There were no surprises. And what it does is it takes really important factors that impact learning, like poverty, like English language skills or lack of skills and needs of the students. It looks at the demographics. It looks at how hard the local government is trying, reimburses for charter schools. Yeah. So it has all those key elements that I think a lot of lawmakers need to see. There are specifics and numbers that very few people will understand, and they don't have to. At the conceptual level, I think everyone buys into the model.
Yeah, I mean,
and says, hey, and the numbers produced seem to work.
Remarkable bipartisanship. I mean, there's a huge coalition. I know you're part of that consists of unions as well as business as well as labor. You're shaking your head. Business as well as labor, liberals as well as conservatives. This didn't have an ideological implication, right?
Well, Senator Smucker's committee took up the formula this week, and it passed unanimously.
Yeah, so, unanimously.
We heard a very consistent theme from everyone who testified, from all the stakeholders. That is that the current system is broken.
Yeah, it's broken.
And so we had to come up with something different.
The host is neutral on here, but on this subject, as a lifelong educator, anything that creates a much fairer way to, distribute the money. All right, now we got one little bit of controversy. I don't know how big it is, but the governor says, let's not apply it now.
Right.
Let's apply it next year. We'll use this as a foundation, meaning the appropriation this year. I guess his argument would be that he's recommending funding that would shift more money to the urban schools, which in some cases, not arguably, have been disadvantaged.
Right.
What's going to happen there?
You're exactly right, Terry. There are a number of big decisions that will still need to be made in regards to our education funding for the upcoming budget and beyond, including starting with the amount of dollars that will be put into the system. So that's one component. The formula doesn't address that. The intent was to create a formula that could work regardless of the amount of dollars. It's a vehicle to drive funding in an equitable fashion. So that'll be one. And then the other is when it first goes into effect. My own personal view is that if we have a more equitable platform through which to distribute dollars, we ought to use that for every new dollar that goes into the system. The governor's original proposal, budget proposal, and the one that's still on the table, is that there would be what he's calling restoration funds for some districts across the Commonwealth. We continue to talk with them about that, and they've expressed some willingness to drive dollars through the new formula.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be all or nothing. Well, this doesn't have to be all or nothing. I concur with the senator. Before anybody tinkers with it, while we have that bipartisan love fest, let's go. Take our winnings off the table and go vote it.
You all like the fact that everybody's in a rare moment.
Let's get it now. But that doesn't mean 100% of the new funds would have to go out that way this year. There could be some combination.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens, and we can get you guys back later on, and hopefully before August, and we can get this all resolved. All right. I want to thank you all for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well and stay.